The wedding photo fell out of the envelope and landed face up on my kitchen table. For a second, I couldn't breathe. There was my husband, Ethan, standing beside another woman in a white dress, smiling, holding her hand. And beneath the photo, in elegant gold lettering, were 4 words that turned my blood cold. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Ethan Carter. My coffee mug slipped from my fingers and shattered across the floor. No, this had to be a mistake. Because Ethan was already married to me. 3 years earlier, I would have laughed if someone had told me my marriage would end this way. My name is Claire Carter. I was 38 years old, worked as a pediatric nurse in Seattle, and believed I had a happy marriage. Not perfect, but happy. Ethan and I had been together for 11 years. Married for 9. No children. Not because we didn't want them. Life just kept getting in the way. There was always another promotion. Another mortgage payment. Another excuse. Still, every night Ethan kissed me before bed. Every morning he texted me. At least he used to. The changes happened slowly. So slowly that I didn't notice them until it was too late. Longer hours at work. More business trips. More dinners with clients. Less eye contact. Less laughter. Less us. Whenever I asked if everything was okay, he smiled. Just stressed, Claire. The company is growing. And because I loved him, I believed him. That's the dangerous thing about love. Sometimes it teaches you trust. Sometimes it teaches you blindness. I picked up the photo with shaking hands. The woman standing beside Ethan was beautiful. Tall. Confident. Expensive. The kind of woman who looked like she belonged on magazine covers. I recognized her immediately. Vanessa Sterling. Ethan's boss. CEO of Sterling Technologies. The woman he'd spent the last 2 years talking about constantly. Vanessa landed another huge client. Vanessa wants me leading the new project. Vanessa thinks I'm executive material. Vanessa. Looking back, maybe I should have paid attention. My phone rang. The caller ID showed my best friend, Megan. I answered immediately. Megan. Silence. Then a nervous sigh. You got the envelope? My stomach dropped. You sent this? I'm sorry. The fear in her voice scared me more than the photo. Megan, tell me what's happening. Another pause. Then she whispered the words that shattered what remained of my world. Claire. Ethan married her last weekend. The room spun. What? I didn't know how to tell you. That's impossible. It isn't. He's married to me. I know. I sat down hard in a chair. Everything suddenly felt unreal. Like I was watching someone else's nightmare. Megan, where did you get this? My cousin catered the wedding. I closed my eyes. No. Claire. No. There were over 200 guests. Each word felt like a knife. It was at a private vineyard. No. Everyone thinks they're husband and wife. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I couldn't even cry. Then one question forced itself out. Does Ethan know that I know? No. A long silence filled the line. Finally Megan asked softly. What are you going to do? I looked at the smiling faces in the photo. My husband. His boss. Their wedding. And suddenly I realized something. I wasn't heartbroken yet. I was angry. Terrifyingly angry. I'm going to find out the truth. That evening Ethan came home carrying takeout from my favorite restaurant. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't secretly married another woman. Like my entire life wasn't collapsing. He kissed my forehead. Long day? I stared at him. The same brown eyes. The same smile. The same man I'd loved for 11 years. How could someone lie this well? Pretty long. He loosened his tie. I've got another trip next week. Of course he did. I forced a smile. Business? Yeah. The lie came effortlessly. Not even a hesitation. Not even guilt. I felt sick. During dinner he talked about work. About projects. About meetings. About Vanessa. Again. Always Vanessa. And then something strange happened. For the first time in years, I really listened. Not to his words. To his behavior. Every time his phone buzzed, he glanced at it. Every time he mentioned Vanessa, his face changed slightly. A softness. A warmth. The kind people don't realize they're showing. The kind only a spouse notices. The kind that confirmed my worst fear. He was in love with her. Around midnight Ethan fell asleep. I lay awake beside him. Listening to his breathing. Remembering our wedding day. Remembering our first apartment. Remembering promises. All of it suddenly felt fake. At 2:17 a.m., his phone lit up on the nightstand. A message preview appeared. I wasn't trying to snoop. But the screen was impossible to ignore. And the message froze my heart. I miss you already read heart. Vanessa. Seconds later another message appeared. Wish you were here tonight. My hands began shaking. Then a third message arrived. Love you, husband. Husband. The word hit harder than anything else. I slowly looked toward Ethan. He slept peacefully. Completely unaware that his entire secret was beginning to unravel. But as I reached for the phone, another notification appeared. This one wasn't from Vanessa. It was from an unknown number. And the message was even more disturbing. She knows. Handle it before Vanessa finds out. I stared at the screen. My pulse thundered in my ears. Who knew? And what exactly needed to be handled? As Ethan shifted in his sleep, the phone screen went dark. Leaving me alone with a terrifying realization. Someone else was involved. And whatever secret Ethan was hiding. It was much bigger than an affair. I didn't sleep at all. The message kept replaying in my mind. She knows. Handle it before Vanessa finds out. Who sent it? What did they mean? And why would Vanessa, the woman Ethan had supposedly married, not already know everything? At 6 in the morning, Ethan showered, got dressed, and left for work. The second his car disappeared down the street, I grabbed my keys. For 11 years, I'd been the trusting wife. Today, that version of Claire Carter was gone. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting across from Megan in a small cafe downtown. She looked exhausted. Like she'd been carrying this secret for weeks. You said there were 200 guests? She nodded. Maybe more. And everyone thought Ethan and Vanessa were legally married? Yes. I slid the wedding photo across the table. Megan stared at it. There was a ceremony. A real one? Looked real. I leaned forward. Megan, I need details. She took a deep breath. My cousin said the guests were told Ethan's previous marriage ended quietly last year. My stomach tightened. Last year. The year Ethan claimed he was traveling constantly for work. He told people we divorced? She nodded. I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. That's creative. Claire. No divorce papers. No separation. No conversation. And somehow I missed my own divorce. Megan looked miserable. I'm sorry. Then she reached into her purse. I found something else. My heart skipped. She handed me a folded paper. It was a guest program from the wedding. I opened it. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then I saw the names of the witnesses. My eyes widened. One name stood out immediately. Nathan Brooks. Ethan's younger brother. 2 hours later I was parked outside Nathan's house. He opened the door and nearly dropped his coffee when he saw me. Claire? I pushed past him. We need to talk. His face turned pale. That was answer enough. He knew. 20 minutes later Nathan sat across from me looking defeated. I didn't want to get involved. Too late. He rubbed his face. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I slammed the wedding program onto the table. What exactly happened? Nathan stared at it. Then at me. Then finally said the last thing I expected. Ethan never legally married Vanessa. I blinked. What? The ceremony wasn't legal. My mind struggled to catch up. What are you talking about? He couldn't legally marry her. Because he's married to me. Nathan nodded. Exactly. 1,000 questions exploded inside my head. Then why have a wedding? Nathan hesitated. The hesitation terrified me. Because Vanessa doesn't know. The room went silent. What? She thinks they're legally married. I stared at him. Unable to process what I'd just heard. You're telling me Ethan tricked her too? Nathan nodded slowly. She believes the paperwork was filed. My anger shifted. Not disappeared. Shifted. Because suddenly there were two victims. Not one. What kind of man does that? I whispered. Nathan laughed sadly. The same man I barely recognize anymore. I wanted to hate Ethan. But hearing his own brother talk this way hurt. Because it confirmed something. The man I'd married wasn't just lying. He was becoming someone else entirely. Then Nathan said something even worse. Vanessa isn't the reason he started lying. What does that mean? Nathan looked away. There's another problem. My pulse quickened. What problem? He stood and walked toward the window. When he spoke again, his voice sounded strained. Ethan owes a lot of money. I froze. Money? Not another woman. Not romance. Money. How much? Nathan swallowed. Almost $800,000. The number hit me like a truck. What? He made investments. I stared. What investments? Crypto projects. I closed my eyes. Of course. A few years ago Ethan had become obsessed with online investment groups. He talked about financial freedom constantly. I thought it was harmless. Apparently it wasn't. He lost that much? Nathan nodded. And borrowed even more trying to recover it. Suddenly pieces started fitting together. The late nights. The stress. The mood changes. The lies. Oh my God. Nathan looked miserable. It got worse. Of course it did. It always got worse. Of course it did. It always got worse. He borrowed from people he shouldn't have. My blood ran cold. What kind of people? Nathan didn't answer immediately. Which was answer enough. That afternoon I sat alone in my car trying to process everything. My husband had secretly married his boss. His boss didn't know the marriage wasn't legal. He was drowning in debt. And now dangerous people were involved. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something told me not to. Hello? Silence. Then a woman's voice. Claire? I sat up. Who is this? The voice shook slightly. It's Vanessa. My heart nearly stopped. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally she said. We need to meet. Every alarm bell in my head started ringing. Why? Another pause. Then. Because I think we've both been lied to. An hour later we sat across from each other in a quiet hotel lounge. The woman from the photographs looked very different in person. Not powerful. Not confident. Not today. Today she looked scared. She looked tired. Human. Just human. For a long moment neither of us knew how to begin. Then Vanessa spoke first. Ethan told me you were divorced. I know. He showed me papers. My eyes narrowed. Papers? She opened a folder. And slid documents across the table. The second I saw them, my stomach dropped. They looked like divorce documents. Except they weren't real. The signatures were wrong. The dates were wrong. Everything was fake. I felt sick. He forged this. Vanessa nodded slowly. Tears filled her eyes. I think so. The room suddenly felt very small. Very quiet. Very sad. Because in that moment, neither of us felt like rivals. We felt like survivors. Then Vanessa revealed the truth that changed everything. Claire, I wasn't going to call you. Then why did you? She opened another envelope. Inside were bank statements. Wire transfers. Loan agreements. And one document that made my blood freeze. It contained my name. My signature. My social security information. Everything. Except I had never signed it. What is this? Vanessa looked horrified. Ethan used you as collateral. The words barely registered. What? He forged your signature. I couldn't breathe. He used your assets to secure loans. The room tilted. My house. My savings. My future. Everything. All without my knowledge. Tears filled my eyes for the first time. Not because of the affair. Not because of the fake marriage. Because I suddenly realized how much damage Ethan had done. And how much danger we were both in. Then Vanessa whispered something that made the situation even worse. Claire. What? The people he owes money to contacted me yesterday. My pulse exploded. What did they say? Vanessa's face turned white. They gave him 48 hours. I stared at her. For what? She looked directly into my eyes. To pay $200,000. Silence. Then she added the words that changed everything. Or they'll expose every secret he has. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. Because Vanessa reached into her purse one final time. And handed me a photograph. The second I saw it, my heart stopped. It showed Ethan. Standing beside another woman. A woman neither of us recognized. Holding a little girl. A little girl who looked exactly like him. The photograph trembled in my hands. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything. Not the soft music in the lounge. Not the conversations around us. Not even my own breathing. All I could see was Ethan. Standing beside a woman I'd never met. His arm wrapped protectively around a little girl. A little girl with his eyes. His smile. His face. Vanessa looked just as shocked as I felt. I hired a private investigator 3 days ago, she said quietly. You hired a what? She nodded. When I started noticing inconsistencies in Ethan's stories. I stared at the picture. Who are they? The investigator doesn't know yet. My chest tightened. A child. If Ethan had a child. Then how much of our life had been a lie? That night, I sat alone in my living room waiting. For the first time in 11 years, I wasn't waiting for my husband. I was waiting for answers. At 8:14 p.m., Ethan walked through the front door. He smiled. Then stopped. Because Vanessa was sitting beside me. The color drained from his face. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Ethan whispered. Oh no. Vanessa stood. You lied to me. His eyes darted toward me. Then back to her. Vanessa. You forged divorce papers. Please listen. You married me while you were still married to Claire. His legs seemed to weaken. He grabbed the back of a chair. I had never seen him look afraid before. Not truly afraid. Now he looked terrified. And he should have been. Because his entire world was collapsing. For nearly an hour, Ethan tried to explain. At first he denied things. Then he minimized them. Then he blamed stress. Debt. Pressure. Circumstances. Finally, when every lie fell apart, he broke. And the truth came pouring out. The debt had started 3 years earlier. One bad investment. Then another. Then another. Each loss made him desperate to recover the previous one. Soon he was borrowing money. Hiding statements. Opening secret accounts. Lying about business trips. By the time he realized how serious things were, he was trapped. Then Vanessa entered the picture. She promoted him. Trusted him. Believed in him. And eventually fell in love with him. Ethan knew it was wrong. But instead of fixing his life, he escaped into another one. Why? I asked. My voice barely sounded like my own. Why not tell me? His eyes filled with tears. Because I was ashamed. I laughed bitterly. Ashamed? I thought I could fix it. You married another woman. I know. You forged my signature. I know. You risked everything we built. Tears rolled down his face. I know. But knowing wasn't enough anymore. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Then I held up the photograph. The one with the little girl. The room instantly froze. Ethan's expression changed completely. Shock. Fear. Then heartbreak. Real heartbreak. The kind that can't be faked. And suddenly I knew. This picture wasn't another secret affair. It was something else. Something deeper. Something painful. Who is she? I asked softly. For the first time all night, Ethan couldn't speak. His shoulders began shaking. Finally he whispered. My daughter. The words landed like thunder. Vanessa gasped. I closed my eyes. A daughter. Of course. Another secret. Another lie. But Ethan's next words changed everything. I didn't know about her. My eyes opened. What? He looked at the photograph. His voice cracked. Her name is Lily. 7 years earlier, before Ethan and I began trying for children, he'd briefly dated a woman named Rachel during a rough period in our marriage. A separation that lasted only a few months. We eventually reconciled. Rebuilt. Moved forward. Or at least I thought we had. Rachel never told him she was pregnant. Never asked for money. Never contacted him. She raised Lily alone. Until 6 months ago. When Rachel was diagnosed with aggressive cancer. She died 3 months later. And shortly before her death, she sent Ethan a letter. The room became silent. Ethan walked upstairs. A few moments later he returned carrying a worn envelope. He handed it to me. I opened it carefully. Inside was Rachel's letter. And a photograph of Lily. Much younger. Smiling beside her mother. As I read the letter, tears filled my eyes. Rachel had apologized. Explained everything. She'd been afraid. Young. Proud. Stubborn. And then, as the years passed, it became harder and harder to tell the truth. Until she ran out of time. Where is Lily now? Vanessa asked quietly. Ethan looked down. With Rachel's sister. I stared at him. When were you going to tell me? His eyes filled again. I wanted to. That's not an answer. I know. Because it never was. Then came the final twist. The one none of us expected. A knock at the door. 3 sharp knocks. Everyone froze. Ethan looked terrified. Vanessa looked confused. I walked to the door. And opened it. 2 men stood outside. And 1 woman. The woman stepped forward first. Mr. Carter? Ethan appeared behind me. Yes? She handed him a folder. Then smiled politely. You're being formally investigated for fraud. The next few months changed all of our lives. Ethan cooperated fully. Confessed everything. The forged signatures. The false documents. The financial fraud. Everything. Because of that cooperation, he avoided prison. But he lost nearly everything else. His job. His reputation. His career. The life he'd spent years building. Vanessa left the company shortly afterward. Not because she had to. Because she wanted a fresh start. A life without lies. As for me, I filed for divorce. Not out of revenge. Not out of anger. But because trust had died. And some things cannot survive without trust. Even love. A year later, the divorce became final. I thought that chapter of my life had ended. Then one Saturday morning, someone knocked on my door. I opened it. And found a little girl standing there. Holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Lily. She smiled nervously. Hi. My heart melted instantly. Hi. She held out the flowers. Dad said these are your favorite. I looked past her. Ethan stood near the sidewalk. Giving us space. Looking older. Humbler. Different. The arrogance was gone. The secrets were gone. Life had stripped him down to who he really was. Lily shifted nervously. Can I ask you something? Of course. She looked up at me. The same eyes as her father. The same hopeful expression. Then she asked. Were you ever my stepmom? Tears immediately filled my eyes. I knelt beside her. Yes. She smiled. Then maybe you still can be a little. And just like that. The walls around my heart cracked. I never remarried Ethan. Some stories don't end that way. Sometimes love survives. Sometimes it changes shape. Sometimes forgiveness arrives without reconciliation. And that's okay. Because life isn't about returning to the past. It's about choosing what to do with what's left. Years later, when people asked about the hardest chapter of my life, I never talked about the betrayal. Or the fake wedding. Or the lies. I talked about Lily. The unexpected child who walked out of the wreckage carrying sunflowers. The little girl who reminded me that even after devastating loss, something beautiful can still grow. And whenever I see her smile today, I remember a truth that took me years to learn. A lie can destroy a marriage. A secret can destroy a life. But kindness can rebuild a future.